Okay, call the meeting to order. Administration Committee, June 22nd, 2023. Looks like we have everybody here. Thank you. And do we have public comments? I don't think so. So the first item on the agenda is Kai Manufacturing, use matrix and TC district for school, trade, or vocational dormitory, and parking designated area multi-tenant. And there's no one here, so.
I do have some input after meeting with representatives this week
From Kai,
from the
glove company?
tenant.
The tenant. From U.S. Medical Glove
From
Company.
the tenant of
Yes.
the building.
Okay.
And
Did you meet with Gil?
I met with the tenant and their representatives, as well as some key members of
Okay.
city staffing.
Okay.
And I think we have a better understanding of what they mean by dormitory, which was an issue for the city council, and then the designated parking. So they have a full expectation to utilize all of this. I should back up, which will probably help if we do a visual. So I'm going to do that. Let's go to Athena. Seconds. We'll take an overhead view of the building. Close, there it is.
Surprised you don't have your computer set up to just like right there.
Oh, well. So,
Charlie
it's
could
kind of
probably
an
set that up.
offset Y here, if you look.
Yeah.
So you have this building, there's really three buildings in one. So you have this building, which is a distribution center. You have this building, which is the manufacturing with all the cells, 2 floors of manufacturing. You then have the office building, which is a 5-story office building, and then what's the hub of the three, which is the cafeteria area, and there's other ancillary things in there, like at one point there was a credit union thing, and things that, employees could utilize, services that everybody would use. Right. Excuse me. And then this area here that's in gray is like that 500 person auditorium.
Oh, okay.
So, they have full expectations to utilize this 2/3 of the building. They don't have any intended use at the moment for the 5 stories of office space.
They're rehabbing that, though. They're rehabbing that to be.
They're rehabbing the entire building.
All the
that's-
buildings.
That's
Yes.
CAI that's doing that.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that even though that's
The
not
building
gonna
is
be
being,
used,
the entire complex is being
Okay.
brought back to code. So they approached the city about possibly, and this helps clarify why they're asking these things, alternate uses for this business complex or the commercial office building. One thing that they are interested in doing, and we have to completely vet and understand what it means, is in the basement of this building, so there's really 6 stories, is a fitness center, workout room, aerobics room, a library that could be repurposed. There's a lot of space that they're interested in partnering with the city to create a indoor rec center. So that's one possibility. The next are the 5 stories above, and they are looking to sublet or, lease this out to other entities. It's not yet known what that would be because they want to explore that, and they want to partner with the city if possible on what that could be. It could be an incubator site. It could be multiple things. It could be 1 floor something and 3 floors of something else. It could be 5 floors of completely different things. It could be a floor of office space, and then a floor of medical space, and a floor of, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. The one thing that they are interested in, and this is where the dormitories come into play, is that they are interested in bringing workers, and I have to care for what I say, because part of their business isn't manufacturing the end product, it's manufacturing the tools to make the end product. And so, yes. And so they're making these tools, and the tools get deployed throughout the globe. They need those people from those entities to come here to understand how to use them.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, they would like the opportunity to house these people on site for a short term, hence a dormitory, while they go through a training program which maybe incorporate a few weeks to a month at a time, which brings additional investment into the community from outside and exposes us to multicultures. But they foresee these people having a lot of, because there'll be food sources available in the building from the cafeteria area, as well as some maybe entertainment, that it would make it very easy for these people to come and kind of just live at the complex while they're getting their training done, and they move on. So that's one aspect to help you understand what the ask is. The other thing that we thought about that might be an opportunity here along those lines are, and I don't know, this is, we're throwing ideas out there, but one of them would be to create a convention center in Harvard and use one of those floors as a convention center. To do that, we would probably also need a hotel. So you could have a floor of a hotel, a floor of a convention center, and 3 floors of something else. That's one idea. There are multiple things. There may be, the county might be interested in leasing some of it for county offices. Mercy may be interested in leasing for Mercy. But at the end of the day, they're interested in finding businesses and things that are local. And then secondly, there is an idea of kind of creating an entrepreneurial incubator system. So a floor dedicated to small startup companies, that there may be investments available from the overall entity to help get them started and create a technology center at this place. So you would have a need for multi-tenant parking, because you're going to have, if that happens, several incubator companies that would take residency up here as they try to start up. So the overall plan is a little fluid, but that's essentially what they're looking to do.
And do we have any idea when things are going to be at a point where we can actually talk openly about the company, and that they'll talk openly with the community about their plans, and that we don't have to do this like...
There's an estimated date, or a floating date right now, of mid-July to early part of August, where there'll be more, they're looking to start with a tour
Okay.
of local officials, state officials, and so on, to kind of kick it all off.
Would that include
Originally,
us
they were talking
potentially?
early part of July, but
Would that
it
include
depends.
us, or
what's that?
would that include us, or just?
Yes,
the-
yes.
Yeah,
Local
actually, Gil
officials.
will take
Local-
us on a tour
So,
as soon as I call
yes.
him.
So
He's
there's an
very
expectation that we would have county, state, local
Yeah.
officials as a kind of a big brouhaha. So that is kind of in the works. The expectation that is end of July, early August. We just don't know yet. We actually, because certain politicians are interested in attending, we need to nail down a date to make it concrete, to get on our representatives' calendar, because trying to fit something in and shoehorn something in is not usually
Right,
acceptable.
and then when you get into the legislative...
So, so once, in
Term.
August is probably not a bad month, because there's a break in legislative schedules.
I mean, I think that that in general would be a great boon. I mean, regardless of how many come, just because it would be a huge, be like those old spotlights for
manual.
the
Old school.
tree lots for Harvard, pretty much like saying, hey, look what we got. But
Yeah.
So, I wish they had sent someone here to tell you this, but I don't know.
They were invited.
Well, I don't have an issue with any of that. None. I never did.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I don't know why we have to give up our oversight to do that, I guess is what I'm getting at here.
I
And
I
what
don't see
mean by
why you couldn't make it a conditional use.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's
and-
what we did, I thought.
What we did.
well, that's what we wanted
Well,
to do, but they didn't.
Well, it
they
got
didn't
screwed
like
up. I
that.
read everything and it
So initially,
pinned
Yeah,
me away.
So initially, just so everyone's on the same page, was it Barney or the legal representatives and Kai were talking about making the entire area, the 290 acres, as part of this overnight stay. But as we were talking with people there, they didn't seem so hung up on that if we just made it conditional use so that the one area, the old exec side of it, could house people, they seemed open to it.
Well, and it's
Well, that
opening.
wasn't my issue at all.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
when we,
I think there was.
Let's just go back and talk about the procedure for permitted use and conditional use. And under the permitted use, they could just start building a dormitory, and all we could do is go there and make sure it meets code. That's it.
Correct.
We would have nothing to say about how many toilets are on a floor. We wouldn't have any say on anything other than that it meets whatever the code is for a
Sure.
dormitory.
and that would also include anybody it changed hands to in the future too.
What a conditional use means
Forever.
is they have to take their plans, detailed plans, to the zoning commission and get approval, or at least an approval to the
Council.
city council for approval to okay that what they've come up with is a plan. That's what I want to be able to do. I don't care if it's the whole thing, part of it, none of that matters.
Well, when Barney was here this last time, and we were going back and forth, it was kind of like the vibe that he was kind of communicating was that if we didn't do permitted, they were afraid that if we got conditional, that we'd shoot down what they wanted to do. Even though we're trying to say like, no, we're really open to what you want to do.
Yeah.
We just don't want to give up our rights of oversight into perpetuity.
Right.
Because that way, if somebody else comes in, just that buys the property, and we have nothing to say about it, and they're a bunch of shysters, and they want to do some weird stuff with it,
Well,
we can't do anything
on,
about it.
on that point though,
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
Any more than anyone else on the planet, I don't know them.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I don't know who they are. So we should trust these guys, but the guys after them might be shysters? I don't see, I mean.
How do we know this isn't a money laundering scheme? I mean, really.
Well, let's not
I
go
mean,
too far here,
I'm
but-
not like promoting that that's really what's going on, but I mean,
It's just that,
we've been in a lot of really awkward situations over
Yeah,
the
yeah.
years with Motorola.
Well,
So
Well, and that's why I said,
all of this secrecy
but I think that
is
that, at some point, I was trying to figure out, what do we do in complicated situations? This would be a complicated build for anyone.
yeah.
And
Well,
we're just a
especially
small city with, a small staff. So we would have to hire an engineering, firm to go over those plans, but we would be giving that up.
well, that's why I mentioned that, to Barney
So-
about the good faith, approach, that if they're not letting us discuss it, we've got NDAs, we've got it, and that's understandable, just because of, publicly traded companies, et cetera. But more of just, we're willing to come to the table with good faith intentions. Are they willing to do the same? And it seemed like he was fine with that. But if you guys already discussed it with them, and they kind of seemed like they weren't totally shutting down at the idea of conditional use, I would,
My recommendation to the committee is to approve it as a conditional use.
yeah, and that's kind of what we
And
wanted to do
They
anyway.
bring their plans of what they want to do, and then you approve it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you ask them to tweak for whatever issue is that you have. That's my recommendation. That way, they can proceed with what they want to do, present it to you, and get the final approval to make it go.
But I am 100% behind what they're trying to do. I am. And I was going to talk to you at some point, but but when we had that thing about the rec center and so on, I thought, wait a minute, there's got to, if they're renting this thing out, why not use part of it for, it could be done if the negotiations worked out. I'm for that.
There's a myriad of things
Of
we
course.
have to
Yeah.
determine and come to an agreement with, and
But that's a great
you know,
idea.
but yes, and they want to partner with the city with that idea specifically, but they are looking for other opportunities, and so I think it opens up a very unique opportunity for the city to really make something happen here, in addition to what is already happening. And I agree with the council that I would not want to give up oversight in for these particular issues, but create a conditional use which allows them to move forward, assuming you approve it. And I'm pretty certain that things that they've already discussed with us, the council would approve wholeheartedly. They just need to see
Yeah, and we thought we had set it up as a conditional use. That was just a,
Well, no, and I understand
Yeah,
that
a
it didn't
glitch,
get
I guess,
finished.
that it didn't,
That's absolutely correct, but when I said I thought we had it handled, I thought we had it handled at the,
Right.
at the, at the city council meeting.
right.
Yeah,
Me
I
too.
looked at that and I thought the same way, but then when I looked back, I saw it got missed.
Right.
When we went
It
back to
just never, we
definitions.
never completed the steps,
Yeah.
and so it sits waiting for conditional or
Yeah,
permanent.
additional use also gives us that leverage over what,
Yeah.
not necessarily just the oversight, but also if
Yeah.
we're talking about different usages for this property, it gives you a little bit more of a stone to negotiate with.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I do really wish they had somebody here, because that was kind of the whole point, was just so that we could
Right.
express our willingness to be open to work with them and not be as abrasive about it.
I think at the meeting, we did an adequate job of expressing our openness to work with them, and they, to quote one of them, or to summarize the hour that we had during lunch there was, help us brainstorm with what to do on that side. So they're very open to ideas.
I think it's a good way to start a good relationship, so.
Yeah, just be good if it were more open and not like limited to two people.
You can sign an NDA.
Huh? I'm not going to.
Well, then you're not helping yourself.
I know. No, but I mean, to me, it just sort of
There's that
defeats the
I
purpose.
know.
He was just checking.
Yeah.
Is mine working?
Well, I imagine when it comes to what they're going to ultimately do, that information will be, especially with a conditional use, they'll have to come talk to you.
So do we vote
I think we
here
need a
to make it as a
motion
recommendation
to
for
recommend,
city
yeah, for
council?
council.
Yes.
Okay, then, I mean, I'll make a motion to, put it forth to
For the-
recommend to city council that we,
School,
go ahead.
trade, vocational, dormitory.
The parking designated I thought was gonna be permitted, or was that gonna be
yeah, I
conditional?
thought so too.
The overnight parking.
Because we didn't really care about the
Parking
parking. The
designated
parking
I thought we
is
approved that at
multi-tenant.
the-
Yeah, I don't care, it has to be multi-tenant.
I mean,
We
that's
knew
just
that. That
having
was-
Just to
signs.
clarify,
Yeah.
please put it in your motion.
So I'm gonna make a motion, for the designated multi-tenant parking to be permitted, and the vocational dormitory, stipulation to be conditional.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you. Woo-hoo.
Alderman Gorman, did you vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't.
It was unanimous.
Okay.
We had to beat it out of him, but we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a problem.
He's having fun with his new toy.
I'm writing.
Making
This
sure
looks-
he remembers what we actually did.
Okay, next.
Okay, next item, Starline parking on Front Street. Yeah, so, I talked with Warren, and he's resigned and he accepts that it's narrow for Front Street between Page and Diggins. Yeah, I mean, he acknowledges that. Yeah. He was kind of hot initially, but then over time, he kept looking at it and thinking about it, and he
Well,
said,
you need to put a couple of coach buses there and see how narrow
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
But he
I-
said he still needs it for them to be able to drop people off and pick people up. It's
I
just
think
they
that,
can't park
I
there.
think that becomes quite possible, it just, because it's temporary, but, yeah, it's.
Right,
something needs
exactly,
it
yeah. I
needs to
mean,
be
if the car's
addressed.
parked there and then, one of those buses shows up, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he, on the regular events, like, and I use Fourth Fridays as an example
Yeah.
because it's very popular, I don't blame him for the parking issues on the street.
Yeah.
That's purely our fault because it's a public street and there's parking, so people are gonna do what they're gonna do. And the biggest issue that I have is a lot of those spots, when they start parking in there, you really can only fit a compact car. And when you've got somebody coming in there with an F-350 Super Duty with an extended bed, and they're doing a 400-point turn trying to get into a space that's half the size of their truck,
Yeah.
and they just block the street, I'm about ready to get out of my car and start kicking somebody because I'm waiting to go home. And that's where it gets frustrating. The buses are primarily going to be like for weddings and that kind of stuff, which we'd like to see more of. So for like drop-offs and stuff, do we have to have some kind of sign up there that says like for delivery times or
Well,
like a
I-
limit?
I think if you decide to make it no parking in that area, we can have some no parking signs, but allow, 10-minute drop-off or something.
I'd be fine doing that as long as that narrow area, there's no parking.
There's no parking.
On
It's
the
just
street, on either side,
Drop off,
and-
delivery, pickup.
Yeah, and the drop-off and delivery would only be able to be on the one side.
Correct.
So that way, because that's the other problem is that if they've got buses or something and there's some kind of issue, I mean, you cannot get big equipment down that street when one side is completely blocked, not with any kind of haste.
The only way that I think you could go forward to allow parking there is if you made that area one-way.
Right.
If you made it one-way, then you wouldn't have any of those problems, but that really inhibits, traffic around.
Really,
I thought about
really
that,
bad.
and I'm like, oh.
That would be really
Well,
bad.
and with the residences there too, yeah.
So for this, you would just need a motion, to recommend, to recommend to the council the ordinance as drafted. And, with the recommendation to put up a sign that says, for drop-offs only, or something like that.
Would we have to paint like a zone or something like that for a drop-off zone or a
No,
specific
you
area?
could just
or
leave the sign.
Okay. Make a motion to,
Wait a minute. As drafted before?
yeah, because we,
Motion for an ordinance change and then it gets drafted.
I think,
We already drafted it.
yeah, because we had it ready to go. and then
But
it
I
got
thought you
ta-
wanted
then it got-
modifications to it, Lisa. Yes, no?
Well,
Modifications for the drop-offs.
okay.
Well, yeah, drop-off zone and designate, signage doesn't need to be in the ordinance, we can just, but yeah, that would need an amendment or a redraft, to
Okay.
include that.
I mean, because we
That's
had the
okay.
verbiage ready to, we were gonna vote on it
Yeah, I know.
in city council, and that's
Yeah.
when we moved it
back.
back to, it got moved back.
Okay, so, to be clear, it's the same as it was with the addition of being able to drop people off.
That's what my motion's,
Yeah.
that's
But
what I
you're-
motion.
But
You're,
I can't remember, was there anything else in there?
yes, there was. He wanted to be able to park farther down the street.
Well, yeah, I know, but that wasn't in that motion, which this is just from from page to
From
Diggins.
page to Diggins.
was what
Oh,
the
so that was, he
ordinance
was complaining about something that wasn't even in the,
Right.
From
Oh.
page
Right.
to the,
Okay,
to
okay.
air.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it had
to,
it going all the way down.
Eastman is not an issue, so from Page to Eastman, they can park there, which is in front of the,
okay.
the excursion market.
Yeah, because that's where it gets
It's just
wider
from,
there.
yeah, because it's about 8 feet wider right there.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
enough space for a vehicle at that point.
Got it, okay. So we have a motion and a second and vote?
But that's my motion with the
And I'll
original
yeah,
verbiage
second, I was
with
waiting for him to
the
finish it
drop
before I
off
second it.
with a time limit.
Yeah,
We just drop off zone then.
Drop
Drop off zone, we'll figure out the
Yeah.
time later.
yeah, if that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and Warren's comment to me was, well, they'll probably have to ticket some people before they get it, but that's just how it goes.
Oh, I said, it's not him.
Right.
It's,
Exactly.
So is there a second on that motion?
Yeah, I did second after he finished it.
Okay.
Sorry, it was a lot of
Any-
chair.
No, I'm
No, it's
watching the
okay, I know.
conversation and.
4:30.
Yeah, no.
Any further discussion, comments, questions, clarification? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Lou, I said aye.
Just trying to keep us on focus.
Motion passes.
will this be on, this will be on next month or this month?
It'll have to be next month because
Okay.
we have
It's
a
too
Tuesday
short.
meeting. It's too short.
That's what I thought, but I just want to make sure.
Especially because there's a revision to the,
Right.
to the
Okay.
ordinance now.
So we gotta wait yet another month
Okay.
to
Oh,
get it.
He gets another month of reprieve.
okay.
Yeah,
End of August, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had the signs ready to go. We just needed to put.
Yeah. Like, I told him, I said, well, it'll probably be next week, city council, so, but you'll get this fourth Friday, you won't have to worry about it, so.
Right.
Okay, item number 5, proposed Tree City USA ordinance.
Right in front of you, that I dropped off right at the beginning, about 2 weeks ago or so, a little over 2 weeks ago, I asked for some input to make sure that we made the necessary revisions, kind of save us a little time. I got all of the comments back, and based on, so what I did is I highlighted where the changes were, outside of small grammatical errors. Yeah. And so, for instance, like under arborist, the one suggestion to add was certified by the Illinois Association of Arboriculture.
Horticulture,
Thank
yep.
you. Or comparable professional organization. There was a word that was left out under section 4A, where right at the end it says or other pest or disease instead of pest disease. So that was added, and then there was a request to kind of clarify the director-board relationship. And so that is under 4C. Other than that, the changes that were made at the previous, or from the previous discussions were already incorporated, and I sat down with some members of the committee to make sure that they were all included. There was one suggestion that was made, now that I think about it, under section 9, violations. The fine, where at the end it says fine not to exceed $500 for each offense. That was actually tweaked between council or committee member suggestions, so it was included, but that's why it's not highlighted.
Wait, but that was what your original draft was?
Right, but one of the committee members made had it highlighted to make sure it was in there, and it was.
Oh, okay.
I'm just making a
Because
note
I
of it.
questioned whether,
I was trying to be diplomatic.
okay, that's okay.
Yeah, so when you sent your suggestions,
Yeah.
that was already in here, and that's why it's
Right.
not highlighted.
Okay.
Okay. We also made the change to, it's not like a regular city council committee.
Right.
It's just one, there has to be one member of the city council.
At
on.
least.
That was, yeah, at least. It could be more, that's right.
Right.
But I asked for that change because, it seems to me that there's a lot of people very passionate about trees out there in the public. And I think we'd rather have them on than 4 city council members.
Well,
that-
then it becomes like another standing committee.
Right.
Which,
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
thought that would be a good idea. And then, can I just have a minute to read this?
Sure. Yep.
Because this is the first I've seen this 4C.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing I wanted. It just seemed like that we had a director, and then we have the tree board, and it wasn't anything tying it together, and I just wanted to see what you wrote there, Lou.
Well, I hope you're happy with what I wrote.
I hope I am too.
Question I have is section 8 for the declaration of nuisance trees. How is that going to be policed, enforced, et cetera? Because it's basically just, determined by the director. But how are they notified? Is that something that, like, somebody files a complaint, or is that part of our code enforcement?
It's,
The only reason I ask is because these trees would be on private property.
no,
How would
no,
we
they're
determine-
actually in the right of ways.
So these are only,
This ordinance only deals with
It says
trees on
private
city
property,
property.
though.
Yeah.
well, this one says any
Yeah.
tree or
Nuisance.
limb thereof on private property determined by the director to contact lethal communicable disease.
Oh, that
So-
threatens public health,
Yeah,
yes.
now
Sorry.
obviously the intent is that if somebody's got some kind of nasty stuff in a tree, that it's, obviously it's a public nuisance because it can spread to other trees in the area, like the emerald ash borer type situation. But my question would be is, how is that policed, enforced, that kind of thing? Because since they're on private property, how do we know about it?
It would be code enforcement,
Okay, so basically somebody files a complaint, more or less, because
or our code enforcement officer notices that the
is that
too much
somebody's-
overhang, or,
Well, like, you think about it, like, after a storm, because I've seen this on, like, just in my neighborhood, like, sometimes after a storm, someone will have a branch that tears out of their tree. It's clearly in their property, it's not on the right-of-way, and it's, in some cases, it's like, well, if I were the neighbor, I'd be pretty nervous, about
Yeah,
that. And so it's the property owner's responsibility to take care of that.
and that's
Yeah.
insurance and everything
Yeah,
else going in that.
exactly.
I'm just more like, if somebody's
So-
got a rotting or dead
Right.
tree in their
So-
backyard and you
Yeah.
can't see it from the street.
So in paragraph B, it does address that issue.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I understood.
And if we have to go in and
So
remove it, then we
essentially,
can.
it's required of the
lien.
property owner at their expense to take care of the issue.
To handle it, but I'm
Yes,
saying, like,
and-
how do we police it? Like, how do we even know about it?
Well, it would go through code enforcement, and if
Okay.
they don't, then we could do it, and then we would lien the property, just like we do for a long lien.
Okay, just, I just want to make sure that we understood that that's how it's being handled.
So essentially, if a complaint comes in, it would go to code enforcement. If this person, and whoever the director is, determines, oh yeah, that tree needs to come down, then, the city would notify them, hey, this is a safety issue and it needs to come down, and you need to take it down within so many days. If you don't, then the city would hire someone to come out and do it, and then we lien your property, so.
And then, Lou, I'm just asking, since I noticed that section 13 was removed, so is the idea that then that's one of the things the tree board
correct,
would do, is
correct.
come
That
up
was
with those
one
lists?
of the suggestions was.
Okay, yeah,
Because that could be a moving, instead of having it in the ordinance,
yeah,
that could be a moving target.
Yep.
And so
That's
then the board would handle it.
Yep.
Or make the suggestions.
Yep.
What was section 13 again?
Section 13 specifically listed the trees.
Oh, okay, that was that part, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, because then we don't have to go in and keep changing the
Yeah.
ordinance every time we want
Correct.
to take something off of it.
So, for instance, ash trees were very popular, now they're not because
Right.
of emerald ash borer beetle, so,
Yeah.
it's not really a tree we want to promote, because it would end up being cut down at some point, so.
I would ask, just as an exercise here, for everybody to read section 1, creation and purpose of the board, then section 4A, and then section 4C. And I think you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. What I'm looking for here is there a trump card? I mean, because they seem really similar. That, you know, that they both, the board and the director have very similar powers.
Well, except the tree board is only advising the director,
That's what it seems like to me.
to
is
me,
that
and the director carries it out. So it says shall advise and consult the director.
So when it comes to any conflict with the director rules.
That's how I read it, yeah.
That's what I would like to see and
Yeah.
see then.
They're the advisory.
What are you asking? Do you want the director to have ultimate power?
I'm
Or the
not
board
asking
have
that at all. I'm just saying there needs to be clarity in those situations, because those kind of situations can get pretty ugly, and I'm not saying they would.
Right.
But-
And then
but-
you have a citizens committee that's like up in
Yeah,
arms.
so I'm just saying that, you know, is there a final say or not? If we don't want to have a final say, that's okay too, but I just thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention that that's,
Quakers about it, and just,
I think that's already kind of clarified in section 4A, where it says the City of Harvard Public Works Superintendent, hereafter referred to as the Director, shall have full authority and responsibility to plant, prune, maintain, and so on.
okay.
And in director-board relationship, it starts out saying the tree board shall advise and consult the director.
does it with softer language, but I understand what you're saying, Charlie. It's like, the language is kind of soft because it does say like consult and advise, and everywhere that it's mentioned, it doesn't necessarily say that like outright that the director is the authority of all decisions of the, on the
Yeah,
board.
okay, well, I'm okay if everyone else is too. I just wanted
No,
to, I was just, when I went through this the first time, I was sitting there, well, you can tell these are written separately, because, you know, they are two separate things, and there seemed to be a little overlap, and that's all. But if, I think we made it clear by the minutes of this meeting, where we want to go, so I'm good.
And just to kind of I guess bookend that. I kind of like using the softer language
Yeah, that's fine.
because it doesn't it doesn't imply irrelevance to the
Right.
board.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like having too harsh a language almost makes it seem like, well, the board doesn't really matter, So, no, I like this. I think this is a great idea.
I make a motion to approve this ordinance as written and to take it to the city council.
second. Any further discussion? Yes.
Of course.
Going back to responsibility of the code enforcement officer to identify a dangerous tree on private property, it could set up the city for being liable if she were to determine that the tree is safe and the tree does end up falling. So if we have a certified arborist on staff, great, that's who I would expect to make that call. If not, to hire one. Typically what I've done in the past is make it strictly a civil matter. We're unable to identify if this tree is healthy or not. So I just want to
Okay.
say that that's kind of how we want to move forward. But
Kinda,
in any case, what we do is identify or inform the party that has the tree to let them know there's concerns that the tree could fall and that they might want to have a certified arborist check on it. Some things are obvious, if the
Yeah.
branch, a large limb is broken,
Yeah.
widowmaker, what have you. But some of those other situations,
Yeah.
it's best to have a certified arborist look at it.
Something that kind of struck me, I was kind of thinking about it and then just kind of like, okay, I'll just let that go, is the other thing to keep in mind is, if we've got a resident that is, everybody brings up the seniors, but if we've got a resident that is unaware that the tree is in poor condition in their yard, and taking down a tree can be excessively expensive now. Showing up at their door and saying, hey, your tree back there is sick and you need to have somebody take it down, it's like $2,000. I think having a softer approach like that is preferable, just so that way we're not obviously just going to some little retiree and saying, you've got to put out this massive expense that you were unaware of.
In my past experience with tree boards, it's been if there's some money there in situations like this, that sometimes the board will authorize going ahead and essentially loaning them the $2,000 or so.
Yeah.
And then as long as they're on a payment plan, no different than we do right now with an excessively large water bill. Because you're right, it's too large sometimes to take it on all at one bite.
I like that idea. I mean, not to obviously not make it a habit, but
Right.
I think that's, I would see a big communal benefit to that, because especially when it's, I mean, it's some, if you've got a big oak tree in your backyard that's 300 years old and all of a sudden the thing looks like it's gonna crush a house and it's gonna be incredibly
Yeah.
expensive, it's not something you usually
Oh, I
plan
had
for.
that happen with two.
Yeah.
I can tell you how much that cost.
Yeah,
I had to
so-
get a loan.
So I think that, I really like that. I think that that's,
Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't recently, because those loans probably were expensive.
Well, it was a HELOC, and
Talking about the interest rates now.
I know, and
They're gonna-
it keeps going up. Like every time the Fed
It was a
meets,
rolling loan,
it
okay.
like keeps, it's like, damn it. I gotta get this thing paid off.
So it wasn't a locked interest rate loan.
No, it was locked for 3 years,
Dang, yeah.
and I'm past the 3 years.
bad when they're offering an arm loan to take down a tree.
Yeah.
So, do we have?
Okay.
We're
Vote.
ready to vote, I think, right?
Oh, we didn't vote?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
One final note, since there's very little changes, Jeanette has already made a Spanish version, and I'll just take the highlights out, so it should be able to be on the packet for Tuesday.
Wow. That's slick.
Well, it was an assumption, if there was gonna be any changes, I was gonna highlight it, and then she can make those changes.
When are we expecting to have like the board appointed and all that? I mean, what's our timeline as far as our goal? Like,
Can you help me find people?
Yes, I've got two
Good.
people already, yeah.
Finding people is always the challenge.
Yes.
well, I mean, I know we haven't really advertised for it because the board didn't exist
No.
Right.
until we
No.
vote on it, but I'm just saying, what was the projected ideal or whatever?
Well, assuming this gets enacted next week, then end of the summer, maybe.
We can start broadcasting on our social media sites and
Would
so
it
on.
get I mean, would it be considered a conflict of interest if we had like landscaper residents, like people that work in landscaping companies in
No.
town to be?
Why would that be a conflict? of
I'm
interest?
just asking, I don't know, so I just, if they're, they obviously own their own business, they could use it to steer their own business,
No,
I'm
well,
just
that's
saying,
still a board vote, as well as,
Yeah.
like contracts like that would still end up, it'd be, like, here, it's a suggestion, and it ends up coming to council.
Well, I'm saying if it's not considered a conflict of interest, I think that's a great way to
Yeah.
start, is to tap that, because
Yeah.
most of them are experts at reading tree health, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to tap that first and say, hey, this is your business.
Yeah.
This is a
And
part
I'm
of-
glad you mentioned that, because I'm gonna talk to my mom's neighbor, Jose, and.
Yeah.
And,
well, we've been talking about getting more
Yeah,
Latino
exactly, and
representation and
see if-
involvement. I
yeah.
think that's a huge way to double dip on that.
and then I was contacted by a guy in my ward who, his college degree was in forestry. So, he thought this would be cool, and it's like, oh, I haven't,
Better go with Canada, they need help.
what's that?
Canada, they need help right now.
Yeah,
so
they need
next topic.
firefighters, yeah,
Next,
yes, next, sorry.
I'm channeling a little bit of Dave, sorry.
Oh, no.
No, I said a little. I
Just a
didn't open
little.
Pandora's box yet.
Oh, okay. Number 6, proposed amendment regarding required connection to water sewer mains in 1 year of sale of property.
Donovan?
Donovan.
Nope.
So
No.
the ordinance to be drafted based off your comments from the last meeting, a major item to include was going to be the grandfathering in of those properties that we don't want to have connected or forced to be connected. So nothing's changed except for that.
I think that was the only thing that
Yeah, and
Matt
then
brought up
we
they
had
wanted to add,
an
and I
issue,
agree.
yeah, it was just making sure, yeah, it was stated in there.
Okay.
well, then I guess we just
Yeah.
want to make the motion? Since it was the grandfather, I think was yours to add.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Okay.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion approved. I have one new business item.
Okay.
That I was contacted about, the ridiculous, noise level of live bands in residential areas that are permitted under our current ordinance, and it was not PEP. He did not call me this time.
Gonna ask you, who was it?
It was actually, I won't say, but it was.
Yeah, please refrain
It
from
was a
singling out a citizen.
someone related to, a council member, and not me.
We can name Pep because he
Cause he
had
was.
no problem being the one that was.
No, he was like right here, yeah, but he did not, and he had called me, cause Raul told him, oh, call Lisa. Thanks, Raul. Anyway, so, that the concern is that it really is very disruptive in, residential neighborhoods to have, live music, going all day. So.
Say that it's very difficult to try to nitpick the difference in volume.
So you
between
want to talk
live
about
music
snow
and-
removal as long as we're here?
Can we add that? Can we
What about
add that
trick-or-treating
snow
hours?
shoveling? Yes, and trick or treating.
We'll just throw ourselves down a flight of stairs and call it a night. I find it
Can we add chickens to the list? too?
Oh,
Yeah.
let's.
Sure.
All right, stop,
Yeah.
we're going.
Yeah,
Pandora's
Pelt us
box.
with
I just-
chickens.
This committee has already looked at this issue twice.
We look at it every single summer.
Yeah,
Every
And
single
we did do
summer.
adjustments to it.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing. We last year we also, I mean, when Pep came in, we did give it a much more thorough once over. Even
we
looked
did.
At, and we even looked at the permit issuing
And we
process.
changed the time,
And
because it had been 11,
yeah,
and we moved it back to 10.
one like the permit issuing and
Yep.
the approval process. We looked at every step of that, the verbiage on the permit, because
Yep.
I do understand where his original conflict was in the contradiction of
Yeah.
verbiage. Just for the point of the record, I will say, I mean, even without the police representatives here to voice opinion, it's difficult to enforce. And second, singling out live bands versus pre-recorded music or DJs or karaoke or anything else,
Which they did
Is-
bring up last year.
it's extremely problematic because you can't say that one is louder than the other. And then finally, I'll add, it's interesting that we get many of the complaints, but only when there's certain types of music being performed or played versus less complaints when other types of music are performed or played.
Yes.
So often in my experience, what I've seen
Yes.
is that
Certain genres are not
certain
acceptable.
genres get more complaints than others by
Yes.
certain residents
Just,
at certain
you know,
times of year.
so if you don't like my punk music, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
Well,
All types of music.
since the topic's already been covered quite a few times
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah.
Really about the only thing you can do at this point is, if there's no flair to want to investigate anymore, is just that the complaint's duly noted.
You know, we put that program together to notify the alderman when
Yeah.
there's,
we
someone
get it.
And
pulls
so
a
we
permit.
know.
You get an
Yeah,
email, right?
we get an
Yeah.
email every time, and
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
a permit is
And
issued.
I
we get-
do look to see where it is, and if it's the people I know that are gonna be really upset, I let them know that, hey, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
The problem is
that's
during the
good.
day, here's the other thing. During the day, the ordinance, our typical noise ordinance and stuff, again, reiterate, during the day, policing that is extraordinarily difficult because it's hard to argue that say like, well, somebody's playing loud music, but 2 doors down, they're building a deck and they're using
Right.
tons of power equipment
Yeah.
and
Using a
saws
chainsaw to cut
Oh,
something
yeah.
down.
and chainsaws
Yeah.
going
Uh-huh.
and saying that one is more offensive than the other. So I'm only saying this so that way that the discussion is
I've
in
heard
the
it
record.
many different ways myself in many different locations.
Sure.
I don't want to I don't want it to come across that that we're, for the viewers, that we're dismissing it, merely that this is an issue that's been discussed
Yeah.
ad nauseum at this point, and we understand that there's concerns and
It-
disagreements, but
It's similar to snow complaints. I've heard that in the northern part of Wisconsin. People complain, oh, it snows. Really?
Well, I've done my duty and said I'll bring it up at the committee, but we've talked about this many times, so. Okay. Anything else?
I
Well,
have two
and-
things, just.
Well, I
Okay.
was just saying on final note of that,
Yeah.
we did, if I do correct me or wrong, you limited the number of permits a particular residence can get too, didn't you?
Oh, that's right.
Right.
yeah, I
so-
believe like per season.
So
they
it's
can
not like they
Yeah.
can have a party at their house every weekend. I mean, there's a limited number of permits that are allowable, so.
Yeah, how many quinceañeras are you gonna have?
Well, the
Right.
permit only handles like evening hours, kind of outside the normal noise
Sure.
ordinance.
Right,
So
right.
if they're having a party in the middle of the
But
day,
if
you can't do anything about it
if they feel that they're violating the noise ordinance to begin with, they should call the police.
Yeah.
And the police could see if they are. If they are, then they'll let them know. So I assure you, there is loud noise complaints, not daily, but certainly several every week that our police respond to. And oftentimes, the offending party does turn down the music, so.
Responding officers have my sympathy.
Yes, absolutely. So other new business, Deb?
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's, I just have a couple informational items, going back to when we did our budget workshop and what we allocated some funds for are gonna be changing. There's no vote necessary, it's just so that you're all aware. They're both new equipment issues that we're having. The first one being Public Works. We budgeted $150 for a new dump truck. That is not doable. We cannot buy a new dump truck for $150. It's more like $250. And so the original plan for that was once Rob came in, he was thinking he would at least purchase the chassis portion of the dump truck, which would be about $130 this year, and then try to do something for next year at budget time. However, he did stop me this afternoon, and he kind of has a lead on some auction contacts where he might be able to pick up a new used dump truck that's in decent condition. The two that have already gone have gone for around 70 to 80,000. There's one that's going to end in about 20 days. It's a 2016. He's not quite sure on the condition. He would like John Bartel's input on it, but John's on vacation this week, so he's going to get with John next week, and they're going to take a look at it. If John doesn't think it's picking up somebody else's problems, they might proceed this year with picking that up, and then look at the budget again next year for possibly, moving forward, another one, or budget a little bit more, whatever shape
Yeah.
we're in financially. if that's
Okay.
So, the reason why we're not getting a new dump truck this year, even though you all approved it, is because there just wasn't enough in the fund, allocated to the fund. The second issue is a little bit more expensive. Well number 9 went down a couple of weeks ago, and they had to pull it for an inspection, and in the process of pulling it, some pipe threads broke, and it dropped down back into 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet, I believe, down into the well. So the initial cost, when we initially had problems, Jim went out and got some estimates, and the initial cost was about $13,000 to pull the well, inspect it, find out why it wasn't functioning properly. Once the threads broke and it dropped back down, to get the equipment in and to do the work to get it out, added about $50,000 to the price tag. They were able to get it out on the first try, which is a good thing, and they found that the motor itself wasn't damaged when it fell down in. They were fearful it would be damaged and it would be a lot more. It was not. So, back in 2016, they had pulled this same well for inspection and determined at that time that the motor was in decent shape and they could probably get another 5 to 7 years out of it. They did replace a cable back then and some pipes for about, I think 30 grand. But we kind of pushed the motor portion off. And they're not sure if the functioning issues that they had several weeks ago with well 9 are due to the motor itself. So while they have everything out of the ground, they're going to rework some of the pipe threads coming into the motor. They're going to sandblast and put a new coating on, which will give those portions of the well mechanical parts about another 15 years. As far as the actual motor goes, they're going to evaluate that and try to determine whether or not it should be rebuilt or replaced. And the guy he works with Municipal Well and Pump, he's worked with for years. He's a straight shooter. He's not going to lead us wrong in any way. He's going to be honest and say, if you rebuild it, you're wasting your money, so let's replace it, or vice versa. So anyway, at the end of the day, we're looking at probably around 100 grand total, depending on what they have to do with the motor. This is all new equipment. We don't have the money in the budget under equipment maintenance because we have other things that need to be done. Because it's unforeseen, and we had budgeted $250 for the water tower, we'll be taking the 100 for the well replacement, the motor, and all of the work needs to be done from that line item. This is actually it kind of fell into place okay because the guy that did the bid for the water tower ended up having some heart issues and he can't do the work this year anyway. He may be able to get to it next year, he doesn't know yet, but he definitely knows that this year he can't. So we're going to it's not a reallocation of funds, we're just going to be using the money for the unforeseen circumstances this year, and then back in budgeting time next February, we'll look at the water tower again and see where we're at and see what we can do at that point.
It's still being used within the utility department.
I'm sorry?
The funds are still being used within the
Yeah, they'll
utility
stay
department.
in the new equipment line, and, if something else unforeseen comes, we have it. If there's some other new equipment that comes up, we'll have it. But as far as the water tower, that was something that we had originally priced out at $150, and then if you remember, we added another $100 to that to take it all the way down to bare metal and do it while we had it. So it's not something that we can't push off. It's not going to cause functionality problems with the tower or anything like that.
Kind of the well.
The well we need.
Motor,
If we don't have the well, we need the well.
And so the 100,000 for the well, is that include the 50 to?
Yes.
Okay, so that's everything?
Yep, that
Okay.
includes the 13,000 original cost, the 53,000 to pull it, once it dropped
Once it
down,
fell,
and the
yeah.
extra, they had to do some televising and, a couple of different, demobilization rig, and then obviously the labor that took to do that. Also, I'll add, some of that cost, the cable that we replaced in 2016 was damaged when the motor fell. So we have to replace it again. So
okay.
some of that cost is for that. And then, like I said, the motor is still outstanding as far as what that cost is gonna be. But
So it could be the 100 plus the motor.
no, the motor, well, right now
The
we're at.
100 is with the motor included.
Yes.
So that's
a
worst
rough
case,
estimate.
that's worst case
Worst case,
scenario,
so-
Yes.
everything.
Could
It might be a
more,
little
could be a little less,
okay.
just
I mean-
depending on.
Yeah,
It was hard for Jim to say because he doesn't quite know what's gonna need to be done to it. so.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well.
Yeah. But, it's good we have the option that it wasn't shattered or something.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. We could have lost those pipes or the threads, or, maybe the motor can still be rebuilt.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't as damaged, so.
Right.
yeah.
Worked out that we
It's just a little
allocated
harder
that
to
money for the,
troubleshoot what the
Yeah.
original issue was now, but
Yeah.
we'll
Worked out
figure it
to
out.
allocated the money for the water tower, made it a lot easier, so.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
it's a logical decision, it doesn't make any.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
I have no issue
that's
with
all I
that.
have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool.
Any other new business?
Well, I think we'll use the new business line to discuss it. And that is, we presented the SRO contract to the school district,
Oh, okay.
which they readily rejected. And actually created some friction. So we went back and basically the ask has been what they were paying previously and asking for an additional $2,000 a year to go towards their health care. So the same 66% of just the salary, and then kick an additional $2,000 towards their health benefits. That has to be presented to the school board, which I expect will happen next month, and we'll hear back. So I just want to give you an update.
Has there
on that.
been any feedback on that from administration?
The feedback from the original proposal that the committee asked us to present to them was not
Yeah.
taken
Clearly,
favorably.
yeah, that was,
I mean, I didn't expect it to be
but yeah, I would have
You know,
figured they'd,
accepted.
like, there'd be some negotiation, not just,
Well,
I think we have several different topics that are all blending into the same time, so it's
yeah,
sorting through it.
there are distinctly three different issues that were, the city and the school district were working on. The SRO contract was one of them. And I think in all three instances, there were issues on the school board side, and it appears to me they're having a hard time differentiating and compartmentalizing the
Each
separate
issues.
issues.
I think they are doing some due diligence, though, in checking into that healthcare. They did reach out to the chief this morning and asked what the city share is of Officer Cohen's healthcare each year. So I did provide him with that information. He was going to pass it on
Perfect.
to Superintendent Tafoya, so.
So, and that'll be presented to the school board for however they decide to, whether they kick it back or they accept it, I don't know, but it was much more modest ask than we
And
originally
that was our,
proposed.
after our first proposal, that's the second one where.
Actually, it's much further down the list than the second one.
Okay.
I think the amount of friction that was
Okay, I just
going
want to
on,
make sure how many
yes.
times, okay.
going back and
it's a
forth
little
was
bit
not.
above the,
Yes.
We went from a
It's-
demand,
Yeah.
we skipped ask and went straight to
It's a
beg.
step
yeah,
forward,
pretty please.
not a leap.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Well then,
Well, thanks for that.
Sure.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Sorry.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you.